Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 72 of Social Harmony, where today I'm joined by Emilie Avon-Green. She is a psychotherapist who works with mums that are suffering from burnout and also an advocate for slow motherhood, which kind of ties into each other. And yeah, it's a thing that as a man, as a dad, while I can empathize, I can never fully get it. This is not a journey that I will walk in the same way. And Emily's work, I feel, is just so valuable to take care of the mothers and the kids in our society, a society which seems to push us to do more, to be perfect, to have it all figured out, just to be, yeah, just picture perfect. And that's seldom the case. I mean, I can, highlight my struggles as a parent. Emily does also. She talks of her own experiences, her own burnout, and how crushing that was, how it felt, and how she, even with support, struggled to make it through and turn things around. And so this is what she devotes herself to now. And it's just amazing to hear that there are people like this out there. And I really did enjoy my conversation with her on so many levels. And I think it's a timely reminder to us all that people are struggling. Life's hard. So with that in mind, please, I hope you enjoy the episode and thanks for listening. Of Social Harmony. Today I'm joined by Emilie Avon-Green, and so without further ado, Emilie, if I can hand it over to you, please, can you tell my listeners who you are?
So, hi, I'm Emily, and I'm a mom, but I'm also a slow motherhood guide and a
Mm-hmm.
psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I support mothers who are feeling overwhelmed, overstimulated, and like they're not enjoying motherhood so that they
Mm-hmm.
can slow down and feel like they're not
Mm.
just surviving motherhood, they're
Yeah.
actually thriving and enjoying it. So that's
Mm.
me.
Fantastic. So, well, I suppose if I can start us off, work like this is often it's a bit of a passion play. So, how did you come into this work, if you don't mind me asking? What's your backstory?
Yeah, so it definitely is a passion. Working with others was always a passion for me since I was young.
Mm.
I had a lot of difficulties when I was younger in
Mm-hmm.
schools and with a psychologist, and I was like, I'm going to be the one
Mm.
who's going to be different. And I
Yeah.
like the helping professions. I've always did that. And
Mm.
then I became a mom,
Mm.
and lots of things happened for me. So I started realizing that I wanted to work with moms who are overwhelmed and burnt out, and
Mm.
in general, just people who are overwhelmed and burnt out. When I had my own burnout in 2021, I
Mm-hmm.
was working in an agency as a therapist supporting
Mm.
teenagers and families, and I
Mm.
was giving to the point of
Yeah.
depletion. And I
Mm.
took, I was off work for 6 months, and I had like the first 3 months, I was a zombie on my couch. There's an
Mm-hmm.
imprint of my bum there. Like I was just sitting. I was just
Yeah.
sitting and rotten.
Yeah.
And the next 3 months, I started to realize that like there has to be more to life than this. It's
Yeah.
not just work sucks, then you die. This can't be it. And at that point, I had
Mm.
also been trying to get pregnant, but with no
Mm-hmm.
luck. And I started going down the Pinterest rabbit hole of learning about slow living. And slow living is
Mm.
really like rejecting societal expectations and embracing a slower, value aligned life. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in, I'm doing this. And I got better. I went back to
Yeah.
work, and I had gotten pregnant at that time too without even
Mm-hmm.
trying. I guess the healing journey led to pregnancy. And I was like, Emily, take care of yourself because now you have this little baby you have to care
Yeah.
for. And I was afraid that if I burnt out again, I was
Mm.
not going to get better. I was afraid I would never be a therapist again.
Yeah.
And I worried about the kind of life I was going to like bring my daughter into.
Mm.
So I went back to work, with all the greatest intentions, and I'm slowing down, I'm setting boundaries, woohoo, go me. And
Hmm.
then I started drifting back into old patterns of overwork, and then add the mom guilt and the mom
Yeah.
shame and the everything else on top. I was like, ooh, this isn't
Mm.
going well.
Mm.
And I had been like quietly working on my own private practice at that time.
Hmm.
And I was too scared to make the jump from agency work to private practice because being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur is extremely terrifying.
Hmm.
And it was all came to a head in like February a couple years ago. It was snowing outside. It was 7 p.m. I had just worked with a family to help them. And I sat down writing my notes and I realized I had to miss another bedtime with my daughter, another supper time, bath time.
Mm.
And it wasn't unusual for me. I kept missing these moments. And I did not
Yeah.
become a mom just to, say I have a child and not spend time with her. So that's when I made
Yeah.
the complete jump. And then through that work, I just started working with moms and I was like, oh my God, with these moms, and I saw this also with
Mm.
my agency work, they're the heart of the family. They're the heart of the community. When they thrive, everybody else thrives.
Mm.
And we often we have way too many expectations for moms.
Yeah.
We treat them as if they should be self-sacrificing and that's love.
Mm.
And so yeah, I'm basically trying to start a revolution of
Mm.
moms who are saying, okay, let's prioritize me because when I prioritize me, everybody
Mm.
thrives. So
Yeah.
that's my long spiel story.
That's no, no. I love that. I really do, and I agree with you. I think, you know, I've heard women say, "Oh, I'm just a mum," and that's heartbreaking to hear. You know, that this one of the most important. I'm not even going to say jobs because that just does no justice whatsoever. Most important roles in a society and things like that.
Mm.
And even as a dad, I mean, a bit of what you said there, I can relate to. But if I can pull it back, so just
Mm.
for context, you said that you burned out before you became pregnant and what have you. And so, just I suppose for clarity, what did that look like for you? At what point did you think, hang on a minute, I'm really not coping?
Yeah, so burnout is sneaky. It's
Mm.
very sneaky because it shows up slowly at first and then
Mm.
all at once. So it showed up for me because I was working in an agency, right? So I was mostly seeing teens and families. My specialization was LGBTQ plus teens who were
Mm.
self-harming, suicidal, and had who were struggling with personality disorders.
Mm.
And so I found myself being more and more tired, more
Mm.
snippy at home. I found myself being a bit more resentful of the work I was doing
Yeah.
and of the demand of it, like the hours, the heavy caseloads. I was working in an agency, right, a nonprofit, and I don't know if nonprofits are the same for you over there, but for here it's like really large caseloads, really heavy caseloads, and
Yeah.
not much support. And I could see everybody else. I could see everybody else figuring out and doing it, and I was the only one struggling. But I kept pushing through, and like I have a history of this, like of giving my all to the point of exhaustion, but I'd always
Mm.
just kind of change jobs before I burnt out.
Yeah.
But this time, I was so entrenched with the clients that I was working with because you get really emotional taking care of these kids, right? For a lot of these kids,
Yeah.
you are the first person that's truly listening to them. And it's
Yeah.
powerful. And so I kept holding on for them. I kept holding on for them. I kept holding on for them, even though I was struggling. And then it all came to a head when I noticed that I was actually doing a disservice to my clients.
Mm.
Because I remember there was one session, it was like after the session, their parent was going to come pick them up. And I was very tired. And they were like, are you okay? Are you mad at me? And it's like, oh. So at that point, I'm like, I'm not
Mm.
handling this well. For
Yeah.
that, clients who know me are noticing that I'm not doing well. And I had a couple being like, oh, like are you okay? You look tired. Or oh, they would say
Mm.
things. And that's when you know that like you're hindering them. And that
Yeah.
was my big thing. I've been holding on for so long to help these kids. And they're very like kids, you're a dad, they're
Yeah.
they're they're aware.
They
They
pick
are
up with it. Yeah.
highly aware. They can sense it. And
Mm.
then I was like, I'm actually doing more harm than good. And the minute that hit, it was like I collapsed. It was like I had been holding on, holding on, holding on. And when I
Yeah.
realized the holding on was actually doing nobody any good, I just completely collapsed. And really, I was truly a zombie. Like my poor husband had to take care of me. I think he almost I had to spoon feed me. I was
Mm.
crying day and night. I was not doing well.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's something I see quite a lot. I mean, in my work as a social worker, I work predominantly with youth offenders and their families, but in a similar way. There is that sort of, I don't know, yeah, probably one of the first people that I'll actually listen rather than dismiss. But there's a lot going on. And I find a lot of people who are struggling in that way, they'll cling at you like a bit of a life raft. They genuinely need a lot of help. And I saw, especially when I was a new grad, I was very, well, I'll say idealistic for want of a better word. You mean you don't get into this work just for the paycheck. You care about what you're doing. And so
Hmm.
I wanted to be, yeah, I wanted to help people. And every story I'm getting, it's all, it's a sad story. They're all very genuinely in need, and you want to help. But I wouldn't say I burnt out, but yeah, and I still catch myself now and again where I'm being a bit short with people, or like you say, a little bit resentful, you know,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And in the moment, I don't know, not say something to the people I'm working with, but I'll pick up on the comments that I'm making in conversation. Just think, hang on a minute, this is not good. Something needs to dial back. And yeah, so I wouldn't claim to know what burnout feels like, but the steps that you're talking about, I think I've definitely stepped on a few of those quite often times.
Yeah. And like what you're naming too is like the comments we make. And oftentimes when it's we have burnout, we also have like sometimes it's like an environment that fuels burnout. So people work in certain
Mm,
environments. That's when you start having like you commiserate with your colleagues, right? And it
mm,
just becomes like a fest of just like, oh, everything sucks and all this is
yeah.
horrible. And it really feels bad. But
Mm,
you also feel like okay, I'm not alone in this, but
mm,
it doesn't help.
yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah.
but yeah, and it does become like when you're working with, especially saying youth. I mean most people, but youth especially. You get put into like the savior. You put yourself in the savior model
Mm,
sometimes. And
yeah.
I work with volunteers and I've worked with other budding therapists. And I often say, like that's one of our things we bring into therapy sometimes as a new therapist is like this feel that we need to like fix things. We need to like
Mm,
solve all the problems. And that's
yeah.
extremely heavy to carry.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's something. I'm not going to say I do a perfect job every day, but I've worked very, very hard to put boundaries about around myself. Because the other thing as well, I was getting home from work and I was just spent. But
Mhm.
then I got two kids there that need me. That was the big kicker for me, in that I can't shortchange them. Yeah, I'm doing all this work, and we tell ourselves, oh, I'm doing it for the family, I'm doing it this, but at what cost? And that
Yeah.
that was, I suppose, a bit of a wake up call for me, in that, yeah, I can't come home and either. I mean, I wasn't taking things out on them. I might have been a bit shorter, clean your room, pick your bag up, whatever it is. But I think for that first hour especially, I was just on the couch. I was just flattened. Just as you process the day and you just come back to your baseline. And it was, yeah, I decided something needed to change. So anyway, but yeah, like well, you said, you got to a point where you thought, right, life cannot be this.
Hmm.
I've onwards and upwards. So the steps that you were taking to, I suppose, before you got into where you are now, how did it start? Because I don't know about you, I find when you're trying to coach somebody through this, or when you're in a difficult situation yourself, taking that first step,
Yeah.
it takes a lot when you've come from a pretty dark place yourself at the moment. I mean, how did it look for you?
Yeah. Well, the first part for me was I needed to go to my doctor and I had to
Hmm.
go on medication. That was my first one. I had to go on trazodone to help me with this because even if I were to go to therapy, I didn't have the bandwidth to truly be present. So
Yeah.
I did go get my prescription. I always call like medication sometimes when we need it. It's like when we're in a dark hole and we can't reach the top. Like therapy is the hand reaching down, but medication sometimes is like the step stool helping you get to the hand.
Yeah.
So I went and got my medication. I went to my therapist who I've had for, oh my gosh, since I started studying to be a therapist. So she's been there for the long haul. And so I started healing. So really at first it was healing. Like I said, I was sitting on that couch the first few months. And like when I say there was an indent on that couch, there was. Like it's not just a joke. Like my bum indent was there. We had to get rid of that couch. You know what I mean? So that was the first part. And then the second part, when you start healing, is when I started going, okay, well, if this is not the life that I want to live, what is?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can't imagine a different life than what you're living or a different way of being when all you've experienced is you know, that life is difficult. And now all that you're seeing is that everybody hates their jobs. So it was coming to terms with like a different way of living. That was my second step. But the first step, healing. Much needed healing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that ties back into what you're saying about if you're in a culture of people, it becomes self-perpetuating and it keeps you there as well. Like you're saying, you know, you're not the only one. So I suppose on one level you might feel a bit of a kinship, but then, well, you can't see out of this little, I don't know, grief spiral or whatever it is that's going on. Hard to then say, actually, no, it doesn't need to be like this. So I love your analogy as well about the medication, because another thing I find a lot of people, they assume that talk therapy is going to be some sort of panacea, some magic bullet that, oh, you're sad, go to therapy. As though you walk in, get a little tick list of do this, 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 and this, and then you're all fixed again. When,
I don't have a magic wand.
Exactly. That's it. Oh, wow. Well, so moving forward, so you fell pregnant and you've given birth to your daughter. So you've got all the ideas. Pinterest has fueled you. You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And again, I think that's fair enough. Probably quite common for a lot of parents. I think we all, I mean, I know I did. You know, you have, I don't know, ideas of how you're going to parent, what you're going to do, what it's going to look like. I mean, I think after a month or two, a lot of them went out the window. But I did have, I had lofty goals to begin with. So you mentioned yours as well. You know, you had a plan in mind. So, well, what was that, and how did it? You know, what parts of it were successful? What did you change? What did you decide no?
Yeah. So being a parent, as you know, is a bunch of trial and error. And then something works, and then your kid changes, and you have to trial and error again.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was like letting go of the mother that I envisioned for myself, like how I wanted to mother. I had this vision of myself being like a Texan mom. I'm Canadian, so I see these Texans moms online where they're always well dressed. They have jeans on in the house. I'm a pajama girl, okay? They have jeans in the house. They always have like a salad, a main meal. They always have a dessert. You know, their house is impeccable. And I'm like the coolest mom at drop off. I'm not the coolest mom at drop off. You should have seen me this morning. But you know, you have that and you see it online.
Yeah.
So part of it was like letting go of that and recognizing that like it's my first time being a mom of this child, whether it's your first child or your second child or your third child or whatever. It's always your first experience being a parent with that specific child. And it's their first time on earth. So a lot of it was like coming to terms with the fact that like I can't have all the answers at all. And like I always say, there's so many books about parenting that are out there. Right? We always say, oh, there's no book about parenting. No, there's too many books. Are you going to be a hunter-gatherer parent? Are you going to be a gentle parenting? There's so many different kinds of parenting. And what I came to realize with me was that if I'm well taken care of, I have the emotional capacity and an energy to be present for my child. And from my work with children, and you'll probably know this too, when we work with kids, they don't remember, like, they don't be like, oh, I wish we had more vacations to Disneyland. I wish we had this. I wish we had that. Or I remember this. They really just want a present parent who's really there for them, who listens, and who's actually showing a genuine interest in what they're saying and a care. And that's like what they want. They don't care about the big birthday parties. Like, it would be nice. Will your kids say, oh, I'd love to go to Disneyland? Of course. But at the minimum, like, what they need is you. And when I realized that they just needed, that my daughter, just needed a parent that was healthy, not perfect, it changed the whole way I live, not only as a mother, but as a woman.
Yeah. Now, I think that's the thing. Like you said, there's too much out there. I think this is something that, especially in this social media age, the cult of comparison that we're in, like you're saying about, Texan moms is your phrase, but I think that's everywhere. There seems to be this paradigm of the perfect parent that's always, it's over there. It's never here at home. Yes. It's not what I'm doing. Them over the road are always doing it better. Like you say, they can eat what they want and still look great. They always dress well. The house impeccable, great car, and all the other kids think they're the cool parent, and that I wish my dad were like that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot to, I suppose, to compare yourself with. We get it all over the Instagram, etc., the look at me sort of thing. But internally, that, I don't know, these metrics of success that we put upon ourselves are exhausting. And like when my daughter came up, the first virtue that I really learned was patience.
Yes.
I had ideas of what I was going to be as a parent and how things were going to go and this, and this. And yeah, I mean, she's amazing. It wasn't like there was a struggle, but kids are going to do what kids are going to do. And
yeah,
I think the hardest thing, again, for me was, like you rightly said, letting go of my preconceptions of what it was going to be about. And sometimes having to admit that I'm actually not very good at this,
I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I think I probably should have been a bit kinder to myself, because like you've highlighted, none of us have done this before. You know what I mean? This is my first time. And, and I'm seeing it from the dad angle, which is going to be a bit different. I don't know, but I wanted to be a very involved parent, and I wanted to be there for the milestones, and I wanted to be just as present as her mum. I can't be a duplicate of her mum, and I wouldn't want to be. But I want to offer, what I offer in the same way. And yeah, when I felt I was coming up short a lot of times, it was, it was difficult. So, but anyway, we'll move forward, and we're finding out, we're figuring the way forward with our kid, and they're taking the steps.
If I could, because some of the things you said, really, it resonated with me, and we're talking about keeping up with the Joneses, right? Where we're comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
We're also comparing ourselves to people's highlight reels instead of their actual lived reality. And a joke that I like to say, and this is on stage at a conference, was we compare ourselves to the parents on Bluey. I don't know if you know the show Bluey with the dogs.
No, I don't. Mine now are teenagers, so I'm past the current.
Well, you don't have to compare yourself, but they're blue dogs, and these parents have the patience of saints. I swear. You watch the episode, and they're playing tickle crabs, they're playing toddlers, and I'm watching it, and I'm exhausted. And then I look at my daughter, and I go, God, please don't ask me to do these things. I don't have that kind of energy.
All right, I'm caught up now.
But you're right too. The experience of being a father, and I think especially in this day and age, compared to previous things, that we have very involved fathers more and more. My husband's an extremely involved father, and he gets fed up. I get frustrated when I go somewhere and they're like, "Oh, who's watching the baby?" And it's like, "Oh, my husband." But like, he's also frustrated with like, why wouldn't they assume it was me? Like, do they
Yeah.
not think I'm an involved father? Like, it's not. It's just the whole culture that we live in
Yeah.
that really it pins the sexes against each other,
Yeah.
and it's a big issue and how we relate. And one of the issues that we see in couples is just because of the what we've learned growing up that we've internalized, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this is, and I'll give a couple of anecdotes of my own. Like, there was one point, my now ex-wife, when the kids were younger, she worked part-time to fit around the kids. I was the main earner. Now, I wasn't loving the job I was in, and she'd found a job that she says, this would be my dream job. I'd love to do this. But if I apply and get it, it would mean that you would need to step back. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm all about that. I want that. I'm dying for that. Because I'd worked as a chef previously and what have you, so it was very long hours. I'd missed a lot of time with the kids and what have you, and I just didn't enjoy it. I wanted some time. Anyway, as it turns out, she got this job, and so that, came about with a career change for me. But I absolutely adored being the stay-at-home parent. I loved getting up with the kids, having breakfast with them, getting them ready. And at this time, what ages would they be? 3 and 6. So they were at a
Wow.
fun age, and
Yeah.
mornings were a lot.
Yeah.
But I remember somebody made a comment, and forgive the crassness, but he says, "Oh, does she keep your bollocks in a jar in the cupboard?"
Oh.
Assuming that I'm somehow emasculated by being the stay-at-home parent. And it's like,
Oh my
sorry,
God.
what? What does
I'm
that
the
mean?
dad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. His implication being that I was less than, that
yeah.
either I couldn't do the traditional roles of providing and hunter-gathering or whatever ideas this guy had. And I just, well, I got me back up with that because I thought, well, how incredibly wrong that thinking is.
Hmm.
It was just, I don't know. I don't know. That's one that really stuck with me because I thought that was amazing. It was great reconnecting with the kids on more of a day-to-day level. I was
Hmm.
there at the weekends to go out maybe or to do the things, but that's it. And I think that societal idea of what a dad used to be back in the day is, yeah, just very much at odds with the world we live in now,
Yeah.
and well, my own personal values as well.
Yeah, and
It
I
was,
love that because it's not like gender specific. Like my
mm,
husband, like we joke that if we could, like he would be the stay-at-home dad, and I think that he would do
mm,
well. I cannot be a stay-at-home mom. I do not have the patience, the energy, the
mm,
structure. And yet like theoretically, according to society, I should be the one devoting my
yeah,
life to my children and not working, but I thrive more in work.
mm,
Like, while I still have time to my daughter, but he would thrive as a stay-at-home dad. So it's not about gender really. It's about
mm,
like capacity or interest or like what it's
yeah,
it's frustrating is what I'm getting
yeah,
at. Like I understand I'm getting frustrated hearing what you went through because
mm,
you're just so enjoying that time with your children, and to be
yeah.
called out like that, you're like, what the heck, man? Like,
Well, that's it. And then, similar to yourself, my ex-wife, she said like I couldn't do the stay-at-home thing. I want to be. I probably would have done. But I
mm,
think again, and I've spoken to mothers since. There's, like you just touched upon then, that inbuilt expectation that all women are just made to be more nurturing and they should be wanting to stay at home and do the things adds another level of expectation where
oh, yeah.
I can imagine a lot of women would probably feel very, I don't know, down on themselves because they're not meeting these criteria that have been set out by, well, who would know, you know, people
Yeah. Well,
back
well,
when.
that's where that guilt and shame comes in, right? Like a lot of like when I had my baby, I had severe postpartum anxiety and depression, which means that I had a really difficult time connecting with her in the beginning because I
Mm,
was really unwell. Um, and I felt great shame for that because you're supposed to just see your baby and hallelujah. But I
yeah.
had a really hard pregnancy. I had a C-section. I was not doing well, so I had a very difficult postpartum. And then,
Mm.
being home with my baby, I really was like, I just can't wait to work again.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was looking forward, like I was sad to put her into daycare, but I was looking forward to it because I knew it was me what was best for her. And yet, like I work from home as a therapist and a mentor. I see people, but then people are like, "Oh, you still send her to daycare even though you work from home?" I'm like,
Mm.
"How do you expect me to work if she's here?"
Yeah.
But also, my husband also works from home, and no one's
Mm.
ever questioned him why she's going to daycare when
Yeah.
he could watch her.
Mm.
And then it's like, but even though I know all these things, my first gut reaction is, "Ooh, should I like not send her full time to daycare?
Mm.
Am I wrong for that? Am I doing her a disservice?"
Mm.
It makes you question whether or not you believe it. When people
Mm.
question you, it just makes you feel like guilt and shame because it's so ingrained, like from what we saw our parents and our
Mm.
grandparents and what we saw on TV. So
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, and it's like as you've mentioned there. I've heard many a comment, and to be honest, I've probably made a few when I was younger and stupid as well, about like the assumption of so you put her in daycare, and there's this assumption of this extra burden of work around the house. It's not just the 40 hours that you do, that how you make a living.
Hmm.
There's the bolt-ons around it that just comes with the territory, as it were. I said the assumption that, and
Yeah.
I suppose this is one where, despite I have been young and stupid, I think I've always done quite well because, like, well, I'm a good cook, so I've always put in there.
Mm.
I from 10 years old was ironing my own clothes and things like that. So these things have naturally carried on. So I haven't come in with these preconceived ideas and gender roles and things like that. But I listen to a lot of guys, and it does still seem to be very prevalent. And another like example that threw me a bit. I can't remember the ex. You were off doing something or other, and it was like, "Oh, so you'll be babysitting then?" I'm like, "No, these are my kids. Babysitting. Do you know what that is?" And I don't think the guy was meaning anything specifically nasty or
No, it's
whatever by it.
internalized.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
internalized. It's just hilarious because that's internalized messaging that he's just like, "Oh, you do
yeah,
babysitting." It's like, what?
yeah. These assumptions that and again, I suppose I can't really blame the guy because we've had these messagings, for
Mm.
years and years. I remember once, and again, I'm really sidebarring here. I would have been at primary school, probably about 7 or 8 years old, and my female teacher, she ended up making a comment. And she says, "Yeah, men should learn to cook so that when the wives are poorly, they can do the cooking." Do you know what I mean? Which, again, I'm going back to the sort of early 80s now, so it's different time and space. But
Mm.
still, these were the messages that were given to us over the years.
Yeah.
So I can understand why some people do still operate along those lines. It's I don't know.
Yeah, and like what I find is that we overvalue and undervalue a mother's work. So we
Mm,
overvalue it being like, oh, you should be self-sacrificing, giving everything to your child, like it's important. But at the same time, the work we do isn't viewed as really it's not a job, right? You don't clock out. There's no clocking
mm,
out of motherhood or parenthood. And
yeah.
I work with some moms who are stay-at-home moms, and
Mm,
the husband who maybe works will be like, well, what are you doing to like support us? It's like, well, I'm watching the child, but that's
mm,
not viewed as work. That's not viewed, and yet, like, it's extremely important. If when I
mm,
work with these mothers, I'm like, well, what would you do otherwise? Would you pay someone to watch your child?
mm,
Like the work you're doing, it's still work. It's still important.
yeah.
It just baffles my mind all of these internalized messages, right? And that's like my
Mm,
big work that I do with the women is like the first part is like awakening to it, and it's realizing like we're not going to
mm,
put up with this anymore. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't serve anyone, and it actually is a
mm,
detriment to our children because even if
mm,
like what you spoke about was in the 80s, you most likely maybe you're a good chef, so maybe not, but maybe you replayed these as you were a parent, maybe when you were starting out, maybe the way that you and your
mm,
wife were interacting. And what I always say is that our children don't treat themselves the way that we treat them. They treat themselves the way that we treat
Yeah.
ourselves, right? So they are watching, they are mimicking, and they are learning. And so
Yeah.
you have a child. It's like my thing with my husband, I'm like always reminding him, like, the way that you treat me and the way that our relationship is going to be her model for future relationships.
Mm.
And and
Yeah.
and, and sometimes I work with mothers who are really having a difficult time with their husbands. Like, would you want your daughter to be in the same type of
Mm.
relationship? And it's like, oh wow. When you think about it from the child's point of view, it puts everything into a clearer light where you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
now I need things to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that was one, I think for me, when my daughter was first born, that was the kicker, because, I mean, like I said, I've had my young and stupid phase where I would be very, very flippant, very offhand. If
Mm,
things weren't going my way, I'd act out or whatever it was. And that, what you've just said, that I kind of thought, what sort of man do I want her to think I am?
hmm
That was the big turning point for me. It was, I don't know, and in a good way. I mean, it sort of shamed me a bit from past behaviours, but it gave me a bit of a jump start to, no, actually, this is not just about you now. There's a little
hmm
kid that needs you. But anyway, I digress. It's not about me. I was going to say,
I know it's super. No, no,
yeah,
everything's a story, and we understand through
mm,
stories. So I love you giving examples, like, because that's how we're gonna understand concepts,
mm,
right? And what
mm,
happens, like what you're naming right there, is what I call intentional parenting. Because before you were on
mm,
automatic parenting, you were just doing. But when you
yeah,
become intentional with the parenting, is when you can really thrive. And so
mm,
that's what you switch gears from automatic to intentional parenting, and that's what I'm trying to help these mothers do.
mm. Yeah, well, I like to think so. And now I have a great relationship with my kids. My daughter's just turned 18. My
Oh
son's
God,
14.
that's
Yeah. Oh,
so
tell me
cute.
about it. Yeah, but yeah, it's been great. I mean, until recently, she's lived with me for what, the last 4 years. So
Mm.
we're tight. We get on well. We're all good on that. But if I can bring it to you, you mentioned the first step is getting a mum to see, what's going on. Can I
Yeah.
ask what that looks like? I mean, I've got further questions down the track, but I'm sort of building towards something with this.
Oh,
No,
okay.
again, it's not as intense as it sounds. It's just more, you know.
I thought I
Yeah.
didn't know this was a hot seat interview. I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
Oh,
Um,
good Lord, no! I think I've done it as much chatting as I've ever done. To be honest, it's like free therapy session for me. This.
I'm happy you feel so. Yeah, so awareness. I'm trying really hard not to swear. I'm a swearer, so I'm like trying really hard not to
You
swear.
you do you, boo. You can swear on here. We're 18 plus. We're all good.
Okay. So yeah, I think a lot of it was like when I started waking up and realizing there has to be more to life than this, I realized how much of like society is dictated by
Mm,
people who don't even care about women,
mm,
right? Like we think about like the powers that be. I mean, in Canada and the United States, most of the leaders are men. We
mm,
think about capitalism and we think about just how the world is right now. It is
mm,
not built in a way to help us thrive. It is not built in a way
mm,
to help us, really have a life that we value.
mm,
And a lot of us have just turned into cogs in a machine, right? We all serve
mm,
a purpose for the greater, and I wouldn't say greater good, but for the greater benefit of capitalism.
yeah.
So like this is like my big ideology where I'm like work-life balance doesn't exist because of how we've built out life. And so I am
Mm,
trying to like really get more women to realize that the way things are, just because they've been that way for a long time doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it has to stay
mm,
that way. And the more we
mm,
can recognize what is currently set up and that is not serving us, is actually a detriment to us, the more we
mm,
can make changes. Because if we don't think change is possible, then we don't make the concerted efforts to make change happen, right? But if we think change
mm,
is possible, then we can take steps to create change. And I find that like the world we live in, the societal world of like capitalism and all this, it creates a victimhood mentality, right? Like life
mm.
happens to me. I am not my
Yeah.
own I don't have my own power in this world. And
Mm,
there's a lot of, fear mongering and all of that. And so when a mother, and anybody, but I just talk to moms a lot,
mm,
when a mother recognizes that she actually has a lot of powers and that like her job and on this earth is to care for her and care for the family that she's created. Like that's the only people that you have to really strive for. Like the rest can go fuck themselves a little bit.
mm,
You can push stuff away as long as you're protecting your core people.
mm.
And when you have that core, then you can grow out. So
Yeah.
what I did, like a big thing was when I recognized all this, I came back to myself. I protected the core, which is me, my husband, my daughter. When you
Hmm.
do that, and when that's well, and you're well in that way, then you can move out. And what happens
Yeah.
is when you take care of yourself and you start messaging, setting out those messages of like, screw this, there's a different way of living, you actually touch more lives than you can imagine.
Mm,
And the more people can see you impacting change, the more that they can see change within themselves. I
mm,
don't know. That was like a big blub, but
mm. No, no, no. But it is all relatable. I mean, I often have you read the Mark Manson book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
no, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Right. I often reference that as a point of this because I was the same in that I was so bothered about what was going on over here, what's happening, that
Yeah.
all the things and the overwhelm is massive. And so
Yes.
I had a sort of a very crystallizing moment I've talked about previously where I, separated, moved into my place, and my friend says, "Well, what does your life look like now? What are you going to do?" And I genuinely didn't know.
Yeah.
I think, again, much as I'm not into the buzzword using, I think I probably had become a bit codependent because, well, you're part of a unit and you ebb
Mm.
and flow as part of that unit. And I'd given up a lot of what I wanted to do, what I wanted to try and do, and so, yeah, I was previously so focused on external things, whereas I pulled it right back and it was like you rightly say, I'll look after what's here. So I try and live my life. I'll keep my corner tidy. I can't do all
Mm.
those things, you know. You say about, like capitalism and market forces and things like that. I could drive myself insane if I was raging against that all day. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's very, yeah, like I get what you're saying. It's very easy to feel ground down by these kind of
It
things.
becomes like a David and Goliath, but you don't win in the
Yeah,
end kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. So it's one like, again, that might be one for the future. I'll get to that when I can get to that. But for the minute, I'm going to make sure that me and my kids and my
Hmm.
house, the bills are
Yep.
paid, the house is clean, there's food in the cupboard, and the kids are happy and looked after. They've got what they need.
Yep.
Once that's all right, I can start self actualizing a bit more. But for now, this is me. And
Yeah, because
I,
because that worth, right? Like a lot of the women that I work with, they are overachievers by nature. They got their self-worth from being perceived as, good, productive. A lot of them are overachievers at work, at school.
hmm,
And so when you do that, you search for your worth elsewhere. When that's a moving goalpost, you never kind of win. You never find that
hmm,
that end point where you're satisfied. So when you do focus in on self, you realize you're worthy just as you are,
hmm, yeah,
and the goal becomes to be well. And
hmm,
it's not just like sometimes people are like, oh, slow motherhood, that's a nice to have. I don't think it's just a nice to have. I think it's a very important thing. Like it's
hmm,
it's a must have
hmm,
because we're not well. We are
yeah,
a society that is not doing well. The level of anxiety is way high. And then when I work with teenagers, it's starting so much younger. I was seeing 6-year-olds
hmm,
with severe school anxiety. Our children are not well. And so
yeah,
this is so much more than the individual, right? But we have to start with the individual because we can't
hmm,
change everything at once.
yeah,
But we have power in ourselves, especially women. We are the core of our family. We're the core of the community.
hmm,
We can impact change just by actually taking care of ourselves.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things in what you've just said there that I want to sort of pull. Because, I mean, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, I had Mel Robbins on it, and she said a
Mm.
similar sort of thing to what you're saying now, in that we're not well. Anxiety is through the roof. And she said herself, like I used to be this massive anxiety-ridden person now. We're doing all the things. But then that's what you're teaching your kids. Similar to how you said, in your relationships, how you treat me is how these kids will receive it. And
Hmm.
yeah, like all of these things just really, I don't know. Again, I think I'm getting a bit of an overwhelm, but there's a lot of things that you said there that, yeah, that
Hmm.
really do resonate. And like you're saying, the slow parenting thing, we've become, I don't know, basically we're measured on our usefulness, on
Yes.
how productive we are to other people. That seems to be it. Whereas there's a lot that's sliding. I mean, you can argue as well, iPads are being used as babysitters now and again, which is a whole other thread to go into because
Yes.
people are just, they are on that overwhelm thing. And what I was going, like I was saying, I was building before, that sounded rather grand. I'm trying to play devil's advocate and sort of come at it from a dad angle because at the
Hmm.
moment it feels like everyone's doing it hard. So
Hmm.
I like what you're saying. You're building mums up. I absolutely do love that, and yeah, I'm not moving away from that. Do you work with dads as well as mums on the other side of it? Because I sort of feel, I suppose, in the same way that two things can be true at the same time. Mum is struggling and dad is struggling, and then they don't support each other because they're both stuck in their own struggle street. Am I making
Hmm.
sense there?
Yes, 100%. And I'd love to comment on it because, unlike what some of my friends' partners think, I'm not a man-hating woman.
Hmm.
I know
Hmm.
I love my husband. Um, and it's so true because men are struggling too. I really speak more to women, but I do have men
Hmm.
who come and see me for therapy,
Hmm.
and I
Yeah.
support them with a lot of the same things. And I actually have a lot of men men and grandparents who watch my content online about
Hmm.
slowing down and parenting. So it is
Yeah.
really a need. The reason I don't specifically work with men is like I can't. I think that they would benefit from somebody who can understand their lived experience.
Okay. Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
I can understand to a point,
Hmm.
but I don't feel like I can meet them as best as maybe a man could, maybe another
Yeah.
father. That's why I
Yeah.
think there's so much like an open space, like for somebody, for
Hmm.
a man to also do this important work.
Yeah.
Slow fatherhood. Let's get that going too, for sure.
Yeah.
Because there is, I think it's like it's also a revolution of like my husband's one of them. My husband is I want to be just as involved as you, Emily, and I want to be just as
Hmm.
much there as you, and he wants to be there for all the activities, and he wants to be the favorite. You know what I'm saying? He's working hard, and we have
Yeah.
a very good relationship where we do like
Hmm.
tag in, tag outs. So some of my
Hmm.
work with when I work with moms is also like when I can is giving some tools that work,
Hmm.
with the partner, but also I have references to amazing couples counselors as well
Hmm.
as therapists who specialize in either working with couples dealing with these kinds of issues and then also with men who are looking for support. So where I
Yeah.
can't fit the
Hmm.
hole that exists, I've aligned myself with professionals who can,
Hmm.
because it's so important. I really think
Yeah.
it is important. But there are some men who really align with what I'm saying, and they're
Hmm.
like, cool
Yeah.
beans.
Well, that's it. I mean, like, there's like two things in particular you touched on there because you said like I'm not some man hater, and I think that's another thing that's been sort of drummed into us, like on a couple of us, as though we're being pitted against each other.
Yeah.
When in my mind, that's absolutely why would I want to be pitted against my partner? Surely the goal is that we're all doing all right. I mean, like we'll use if you're using a parenting lens, then the
Hmm.
goal is healthy and happy children who are, thriving and
Yes.
doing well. It's not a point scoring game, and it's not a zero sum game by any means. But like again, I liked when you were saying like your lived experience cannot be, the same
Mm.
as a guy. In that this is the reason sort of I'm coming at it from this angle. I can have as much empathy and what have you as possible. And I genuinely would want the best for my partner or for a mother who's struggling, but I don't fully get it. I can read the
Yeah.
books, I can have the conversations, I can be in the same room. And furthermore, as well, like I was saying, my daughter, she lived with me for like exclusively for the last 4 years. But I was very aware that I can be a lot of things, but I can't be a mum. I there was a relationship with her mum, and she's now gone to live with her mum. So I mean, it's not like that. I think at the time, she just sort of resonated more with how I parent. That's maybe what she needed for then. But I was very aware that like I've got a lot of very intelligent, very strong female friends who, just and I would regularly invite them round, and like my daughter's
Yeah.
talking to them and learning from them because well, they can understand her in a way that I couldn't. It's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
No, no,
a,
you're making like
a
a
lot.
lot of sense, a lot of sense because like you'll never know the experience of being a woman. You haven't grown up being a woman in this society. You haven't grown up with the same difficulty.
No.
You've grown up with your own difficulties in the same way that you'll never know what it is to be a mother until you go through it. Like I was warned about the difficult sleep and how birth was going to go and all that. I was not prepared, and you're never prepared for how it actually
Mm,
impacts your body. And I'm
mm,
3 years postpartum, and I'm still having repercussions. So
yeah.
you'll never experience that. The thing, and I think like my viewpoint, I'm a therapist, right? So
Mm,
I've worked with so many clients who have lived experiences that differ from mine,
mm,
and I'll never be able to truly understand. And I'll actually vocalize that to a client. I'll be like, I'll never be able to truly
mm,
understand what you're going through. The difference is we don't have to like understand it 100%. We don't have to have lived it to have care, compassion, and communication, right?
mm,
And for me, a lot of us enter conversations with judgment or with preconceived notions or with the want to like win a
yeah.
conversation. I enter every conversation with curiosity.
Mm,
And when you enter with curiosity, you leave an openness. So for me, like a lot of my work with moms is teaching effective communication skills and listening skills and trying to
mm,
understand where our partners are coming from. Because sometimes our partner will react a certain way, but we might not have considered it might be something else that's going on. So I just think, I always bring it back to my clients, like, why did you go with your partner in the first place? Because right now we
mm,
get into a system where we're not really maybe being physically intimate anymore. That often happens. We are not connected, even holding hands. We're only roommates in a lot of ways.
mm,
Or we're not even teammates. We're not even team. Either we are teammates and we're just teaming up as a
mm,
partnership for our kids, or we're not even teammates.
yeah.
But we that was not our first go into a relationship. We entered this relationship because there was a deep love, a deep understanding, a deep respect, and a want to create life or a want to
Mm,
adopt life. And so when we come back
mm,
to like what was the initial reasons why you decided to get with that person, the more we can like see that individual in a different light, we can remember like what we loved about them and
mm,
recognize that we've changed, but we can still like either we can move forward through communication,
yeah.
or it's like you're a divorcee. Maybe it's no longer the right relationship anymore, and that's okay
Mm,
too. Um,
mm,
but it's always respect, communication, and curiosity. I think are and non-judgment are the
mm,
keys.
yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And what you're talking about then, it, since my separation, I've given it a lot more thought, more than I did in the lead up to it, I suppose. And yeah, it
Mm.
was a lot of those things. I think we'd lost our way, about being on the same team. And yeah, we just got to a point where we'd grown apart, and there it was. But what I am incredibly proud of is that despite, what's gone on between us, the kids became, what they needed. We sort of pulled it together for that. We,
Yeah, and I wouldn't
yeah,
even say despite, because like that's like, I really harp on words.
mm,
I think you guys were intentional in the work that you did to ensure that although you were separated, maybe actually separation might have been the best thing for your kids. It might not have been a great environment if you guys stayed together. So separation might have been
mm,
the best thing for your kids, possibly. But either way, you guys were intentional in
mm,
ensuring that your children had, present parents, regardless if they were married
mm,
or not. You
Yeah.
both were like, these are our children, and we
Yeah.
are going to do our best for them. And so I think you should be
Hmm.
really proud of that. And I think your
Hmm.
wife, well, your ex-wife should as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's it. Like you've just touched upon, I don't think we were being our best selves, and I've spoken to both of the kids since then. I think at the time, you know, they didn't fully understand it, and kids,
Mm.
possibly want their parents to be together. Since then, I've spoken, and they're both happy with how things are. They see that myself and their mum are happier in ourselves. We've each
Yeah.
got new relationships and what have you. And I think for both of us as well, we've looked at what didn't work the first time around and
You
then
learn.
gone into it like, okay, I've been to the puppet show, I've seen the strings, so here we are. We've not gone in, like I often refer to it as a Disneyfication. Like you're saying, we see these things on TV, these ideals
Hmm.
of what should happen. And yeah, and nowhere in those things does anybody ever burn out. Does anybody ever feel less than?
No. Or,
And
or
nobody's got a
or like
messy house.
divorce is seen as a failure. Divorce is not a
Yeah.
failure,
Hmm.
okay? Like that really pisses me off. Like I don't wish divorce upon anyone. I don't wish divorce upon my family, like my husband and me. But it's not a failure. I've seen so many families who have like not gone towards divorce where they really kind of should have at one point.
Hmm.
Really, it's you're intentionally choosing the best situation for both of you,
Hmm.
right? Like I think
Yeah.
divorce can be a service when it's done in a way that's like, there's always ways like my parents separated, my dad has passed, but when they
Hmm.
separated, my dad cut the carpet in two. He took the spice bottles, he was
Hmm.
measuring them out, like make sure everything
Hmm.
was 50-50. He was very petty.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they needed to separate, and I'm very happy
Hmm.
they did,
Yeah.
because it was not a good environment, and so it's
Hmm.
not a failure by any means. And like you said, like you're in a new relationship, she's in a new relationship, your children are doing great. Look, you have your own podcast,
Yeah, there it is.
like
You see? Living my best life. Yeah.
exactly. Talking to me today, lucky
There
you.
you go, see. Now I've reached a new high.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I could argue I'd never have done these things had I not got divorced. So there we go. Not to put that
Yeah.
on the table, but yeah. Well, now if I can pull that. So let's say, fair enough, you may not be able to work with a man on that side of the thing, but how would you recommend, say, if my partner was in this position, about supporting her? Because, I mean, you can work with her, you can give the skills, you can do the things, but you're only there for a small window of that person's week.
Yeah.
There's a lot more needs to happen in the home and beyond.
Yes. There's so many things, and I don't want to overwhelm anybody. So I'm gonna say like number one thing that my clients come to see me, that like when I
Mm,
work with clients, I always ask like what was the most beneficial thing from our work together in each session,
mm,
let's say.
yeah.
And for them, it's someone to listen
Mm,
and not judge, and just
mm,
let them talk. And that sounds very simple, but it's extremely rare in our day and age to have someone who's truly and authentically interested in what you're having to say and is not there to just fix it, right? I'm not there to fix
yeah.
your life. I'm here to
Mm,
listen and to support. And
mm,
some men are go and fix it mode. I'm actually with
yeah,
my
yeah.
husband, I'm the fix it mode lady, and I have to like
Mm,
pull back. I'm like, oh,
mm,
you're not feeling great. Let me, oh, wait, no. I'm the fix
yeah.
it one. He's not.
Mm,
So it's like recognize, and it goes both ways, right? So I think the key is always just communication and like listening, and being an active listener is a lot of work to actually listen without just thinking about how to respond.
yeah,
That's well, sometimes
definitely.
I tell my clients, I'll give them homework and I'll be like, I want you to just talk to your husband, like
Mm,
just once. And they'll go in outside in the patio and they'll take a coffee, or they'll go around the kitchen table, or they'll go on the couch, and they'll come back to me like, wow.
mm,
Like, because when you set up intentional time to talk, and it's not like done in the heat of the moment when you're already
mm,
frustrated, but like you're intentional with it, it's crazy. And when you're actually there to like to connect,
mm,
when you're there to connect, not just um deliver like how you're feeling, or just to connect. We
yeah.
don't connect. We're so disconnected, and we're so disconnected from our partner. So connection, talk, make it, put
Mm,
it in your calendar, and make it special. Hold each other's hands, please and thank you. I have a lot of men that I work with is they'll say their wives don't want sex, and the women that I work with are like, I don't want sex, and I can get that when you don't even hold each other's hands anymore, when
Yeah.
you don't even snuggle up on the couch, when you
Yeah.
don't even talk about your hopes and dreams. Why would you want to have sex with that person? Why would you want to? So it starts with the basics, and I think that's what I would recommend to everybody, just intentional time to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And that's something, and again, this might be a bit of a TMI, but in the past, I was the one that didn't want sex for those very reasons that you talk about, that
Hmm.
lack of connection. It was well, I don't particularly like you, so I'm not going all in on this kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know. So, and this is an absolute truism. I do have a lot of women that talk to me about things like this,
Hmm.
and that's the thing, I get the ick, and it's the assumption that, you know, you will cook the meals, you will raise the children, you will hoover the front room, you will then put out at a later stage when it suits. These mechanical
It,
roles inside of a relationship
oh,
that,
yeah.
and it
And
can't be just gendered. Well, I'm I'm saying I'm proof of that, but I can't be the only one.
no, you're not the only one. It's just like I think part of it is just how we're hormonally built too. Like that comes
Mm,
into play. For
mm,
women, often the ones that we don't want sex is often hormonal, right? Like
mm,
also women's like brains need to be turned off so that they can be
mm,
turned on. So that's
mm,
why we hear it so much for women. It's also like we feel like the default parent. There's a lot of things coming into play. And like the big thing I hear from either the men or the women is like there's shame and guilt when you don't want to have sex, but sex is not part of the marriage contract.
mm,
You know, sex is not part of the marriage contract. Sex, like
mm,
marriage contract, is about commitment. Sex is
mm,
a bonus. And I always tell I tell my clients, and when I make videos, I have a video where I'm like, you don't owe your partner sex, you don't owe them
mm.
sex, and I want you to want to have sex because sex is fun.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
it can be
yeah,
both. But
mm,
yeah, you have to actually like the person, like the person before you have sex with them. Like we're not forcing
yeah.
ourselves to do something that's not enjoyable.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's sort of what I'm saying, and I feel like we've sort of gone through a right lot of topics today. This has been fantastic in a lot of ways, but
I
again,
go off on
yeah.
tangents.
Oh no, I love that. I love that. That's what I was saying. Like, it just goes where we take it, but all of it very relatable.
Mm.
The work you do is one aspect, but I think this conversation has shown that it's not just a one-stop shop. There's so many different branches that come off that all tie into the central, I suppose, the subject that you're there for discussion, if you like, you
Yeah.
know. And this is something that's, yeah, I suppose when I started looking into your work and what have you, yeah, I love this sort of thing. I love the people aspect. And I don't know, I suppose for myself, I want to I want to know more. I want to know what it's like on the other side of the table. Because my thing now is more than ever, I suppose. If I ever, if I'm here, I'm building up my partner as well, but then we build each other up. And I'm not subscribing to that ridiculous happy wife, happy life cliche. But it's like, I don't know anybody why they wouldn't want their partner to be up, to be
Right?
supported,
Yeah.
to be built up. Because, well, on the day when I walk through the door and I'm falling apart, I need somebody to help me piece me back together again as well as a fundamental. And I do really struggle with like you're saying, the way things seem to be set up at the moment is very anti
It,
each
it,
other.
it is. And if I could even say, like when you mention walking in through the door, we're like, well, Emily, you're asking for a 50-50. And it's like, no, I work through percentages. So some days I don't have much to give and my
Hmm,
husband has to compensate. And sometimes he doesn't have much to give and I compensate. And that's not about like, oh, what's the term? Now I'm going to think about the term, but it's like yeah, it's not equality. It's like an equity, right? It's like
yeah,
making
yeah,
sure that we're
yeah.
both, and that's a lot of it. Again, it just comes down to communication. So like I tell
Hmm,
him like I'm not doing well and he's like, okay, I'll handle the baby.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I'm about to blow a gasket because sometimes it happens. I lose my cool and I have to go in another room.
Yeah.
And I have a relationship where I can tell him and not feel judged and just feel
Mm.
okay to just disappear because I know he's
Mm.
got it. I know he's
Yeah.
got it. So that's what I would love. And like, because but like, it's all about like I work with the women. I'd love for somebody else to work with the men.
Mm.
But even the men can watch my videos. Like, there's so much
Yeah.
that's like general as well that can
Mm.
and is helpful.
Mm.
But yeah, yeah.
Mm. No, I'll say, like, the content of yours that I have seen and listened to, I find myself nodding along. And I'm also thinking, though, why wouldn't guys think this? A lot of it does seem like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, my husband
Obviously I've.
too. He's like, slow motherhood, that's just kind of my life. And I'm like, yeah, but not for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's it. And I think that's it. I mean, you've hit on very much the communication. I think it's that once that stops and we move in our separate directions, then
Hmm.
you sort of end up with a bit of a pile on, which I'm sure burnout could be an eventual, result of, because you're feeling like you're siloed, like
Yeah,
you're
isolation. Yep.
alone
Hmm.
doing the things. In a lot of ways, you are,
Yeah.
but it doesn't need to be that way.
No, it
But
doesn't
no,
have to
no,
be
it's,
that way.
mm,
Yeah, no,
no,
I'm proof that it doesn't, and I have a lot of clients and mothers that I
mm,
work with who now live this different lifestyle, and like they
mm,
came and saw me for work, but
mm,
through them communicating it with their partners and like making changes, it impacts because when your partner, your husband, let's say, sees you making changes,
mm,
he also knows that he can. So like when I start saying that I can run away when I am exhausted, my
yeah,
husband can too,
yeah,
right? So they learn also. Like I remember I started decluttering one day, and my husband's like, "Ugh,
mm,
decluttering is so dumb." Blah, blah, blah. He's very much a
mm,
hoarder, and I didn't push him. I
mm,
just did my side. And then one day I come in and he's decluttering his clothes, and he's like, "Well, it kind of felt good when it was decluttered." I was like,
mm,
"Oh, it's a small, stupid example just to show how much
mm,
like we impact others just by virtue of being ourselves.
yeah,
Like even me, like I'm a very happy-go person, and hopefully when I go into rooms, my joy impacts others. Like that's a hope that I
mm,
have. So
yeah,
even if you're the only one seeking support, you helping yourself will impact others. Will help impact your friends, your husband, your kids. Like
mm,
it's a domino effect.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's it. I mean, I don't know one person who's ever changed their ways and their way of looking at things by being nagged to death.
No.
You know, like you're saying, it's that you didn't push. You were like, no, I'm just going to be doing this and what have you. And
Yeah.
he's sort of peering
Yeah.
across and
He was
thinking,
like,
actually,
oh, there's
there
actually
it
where I'm going
is.
to walk on this side of the room. I
Yeah,
kind of like that. I was like, I came in and I was like, Daniel, what are you doing? And he's like, um, you know, yeah, uh-huh,
playing it
uh-huh.
down like a guy. But I love that. No, 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 and I think that's it. I think that's a good final bit of information to be. Yeah, just to finish up this on that. Yeah,
Mhm.
just do your thing, and people will
Yeah,
notice
do
and they'll
your
get
thing.
on
It's all
board.
it's you. You only have control over you. You don't have control over much in this life.
Yes.
You have control how you come to approach it. So
Yeah.
approach it with your best self.
Yeah. No, it's exactly where I want to finish. So I want to say thank you, Emily. I've been edified, but also I've really enjoyed the chat. I don't know, I can go offline. I'll just get myself another cup of tea and carry this on for a couple of hours. Great stuff.
Oh, I enjoyed it too, and I love all the examples you gave. It's nice talking to like a father too, so you had that background. So I've thoroughly enjoyed this as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. And yeah, no, it's been great. I really do think the work that you do is so very important. I love it.
Thank you.
So thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you again out there for listening. As always, I appreciate your support. I say this every time, but it's the absolute truth. So for those of you new to the podcast, please, if you could check out me out, work on Instagram and now TikTok under Social Harmony Talk and Facebook under Social Harmony Time to Talk. I'll post show links, selfies, information about new episodes, things like that, where I'll look to launch a new episode every Monday at 6 o'clock New Zealand time on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if I could ask you, please Like, follow, share, comment, get involved across all of those platforms. I would greatly appreciate it. You would make an old man very happy. If you want to join me on a conversation, please flick me a message, get in touch, and we can look to sort something out for the future. But for now, go well, look after yourselves, keep talking. Thank you very much for listening.